Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here to preview the Big 12 SEC Challenge. Full disclosure, we are SEC guys, but we do follow college basketball across the board, especially Blake. We are going to give you, as of Thursday morning, some estimated lines. We don't have the real lines yet, but here's how we got them. We averaged Ken Pomeroy, Bart Torvik, BPI, and Jeff Sagarin, and we'll also give you victory probabilities. So, Blake, let's get right into it. The first game of the Big 12 SEC Challenge, and we'll do these in order. Auburn traveling to West Virginia. That game can be seen on ESPN. West Virginia is about a 3.9-point favorite with a 66% chance of winning, according to computers. Auburn coming off a home loss, and it better get its head right heading into West Virginia because that's a tough team. I think WVU is 21 in KenPom right now, even if the resume isn't maybe so great.
Yeah, nice coaching matchup here. Bruce Pearl and Bob Huggins, a nice, stylistically, I think this is a fun one because you look at just kind of how these two teams like to play, and that should make for a very entertaining game, in my opinion. Just kind of based on what both of these teams want to do. So I think one thing that immediately kind of look at in this one is we talked about Auburn on the offensive side and certainly have their best game against A&M. And I think, you look at kind of how A&M plays too, right? West Virginia will probably try to replicate some of those things or will replicate some of those things just based on how they play. Auburn, sometimes maybe a few turnovers they shouldn't have, especially in some of these close games. West Virginia will turn you over, as we know. So I think that's one thing that sort of immediately jumps out at you. But some other things, this West Virginia team in particular, I mean, this is and not to say that, some of his teams haven't been, but I feel like when you say the name Bob Huggins, right, most people, the first thing they're going to think of is defense. But this is a pretty good offensive team. And I think you kind of have to, I think here's what we always say going into this challenge, and we'll just say this up front. You have to keep Big 12 teams' conference record in context.
That league is brutal.
I mean,
they're
2-6 in the
hands
Big 12,
down the best league.
But that's a pretty good team that's 2-6 in the Big 12. So I think you have to keep that in mind here because some people I know do that every year. They're like, well, they're 1-7 in the league or 2-6. It's not your typical 2-6 team, right? In conference play. Like this is the Big 12. It's the best conference in the country. We're SEC guys, cover the SEC. This is the best conference in the country. And so I look at some of those things. They've had some close calls this season. I think they can score the ball. It's a road game. I'm going to pick West Virginia. I just think that they have played and it's scheduling wise too. You go up and down. We talk about just having the Big 12 conference play as part of your schedule is going to make it stronger. But this team has played Purdue. They played Xavier. You're talking about two Final Four type teams. They played both of those teams, lost both of them. But again, they've played those teams, right? They played Kansas already. They played TCU, Texas. I just think that this is one of those games that feels really tough for Auburn coming off a loss. Playing just that kind of style for a team that does have some ups and downs offensively. Even though we thought they were kind of starting to turn a corner, playing two teams back to back like A&M and West Virginia, I think it's a tough ask. And so I'll pick West Virginia with them win this one.
One little footnote, and again, it's against the Big 12, which is just brutal, and this can happen to just about anybody. West Virginia has lost 3 of its last 4 home games. Auburn has won 4 times on the road, although the best of those wins was Washington, which doesn't count for a whole lot. So just throwing that out there for the folks.
Yeah, I think, again, there's something to that, but I just think this is probably, again, knowing how both coaches want to play, I look at this West Virginia team. They got good balance. They are, I feel like I trust them more in this spot. That maybe is the best way to put it, especially if Auburn beats A&M, maybe, you're thinking a little bit different, right? But I just feel like I trust them a little bit more, especially in a road matchup here for a team coming off of I think a disappointing loss, not a bad loss, but a disappointing loss in Auburn. So.
At 1:00, also on ESPN, Alabama fresh off a 3-point win at home over Mississippi State, the only team that has challenged Alabama in a month and a half. The Crimson Tide 6-point favorites in Norman. Oklahoma a 29% chance to win on its home floor, according to the computers. What have you got on this one?
Well, I mean, I think this one is a little bit, Oklahoma again. I feel like Alabama and Oklahoma played in the Big SEC Big
Every
12
year.
Challenge more than any other combination we've seen outside of maybe Kansas and Kentucky. I feel like these guys play all the time, but this is an Oklahoma team that I think you want to talk about offensively. I wonder if they can. I wonder if they can do the things you really need to do to beat Alabama. And I think that's probably my biggest concern right now for them. I mean, again, this is where the home team matters, right? And I think these are games maybe we flip our opinion on a little bit. I don't know that this one I flip my opinion all that much because I think Alabama may have got that game out of their system that,
Yeah.
the Mississippi State game. And I just, you're talking about a different style here, right? Oklahoma wants to play more methodical. I mean, you look at the tempo numbers and all that; it's the complete opposite of Alabama.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that certainly comes into play. And I think I'm going to keep going back to what I say about Alabama defensively. This is just a team that does so many good things well defensively. Still, as we've said, not allowed more than 69 points in an SEC game. They're just really good on that side of the floor, and I think they will be back offensively to the point you expect them to be at. Just from that standpoint, I mean, this is an Oklahoma team that I just, again, it's kind of, we're going to say the same thing, was like, I don't think this is a bad team at all. I mean, look at the close losses, right? They got 3 Big 12 losses by, I think it's 3 points or less. They lost to Texas by a point, Iowa State by 3 points, Baylor by 2 points. Don't forget the Kansas game. They lost by 4 on the road. So they've had a lot of close calls against good teams. I mean, those are all top tier teams. So maybe you expect more of the same here. Do I think Alabama's just going to run away with this one? No, I don't. I think Oklahoma will play a style that Alabama will not love, especially if Porter Moser can get his team to dictate how this game is played. But I mean, how do I pick against Alabama again, just given what they've done? But this is a sneaky game because, like I said, I think I'm picking Alabama no matter what. But when you really look at the style difference with these two teams, Oklahoma's at home in the 938th matchup between these two teams in the SEC Big 12 Challenge. I think I'm going to pick Alabama, but maybe don't be shocked unless Oklahoma just cannot find enough offense to keep up.
Well, Oklahoma's best attribute offensively is 2-point shooting percentage, 54.4%. That's 37th in the country. Alabama, number 3 in the country, defending the 2. And a lot of that's just length. Alabama will put long guys all over the floor. They get after you. They just make it really hard for you to get clean looks.
Yeah, you're not going to get easy shots. And I think that becomes one of those things now for Oklahoma is, this is a team that relies heavily on Grant Sherfield. He is someone that will, I mean, again, right? Like I think if they're going to win these kind of games, he has to be up there point wise. Because you can look at the last couple games, right? They lose to, what was it, TCU and Baylor, I think, in their last 2 games. They put up 52 points, 60 points, and he had, I think, combined 13 points, just didn't make shots. So, like, that's another big part. If he can't get going in this one and kind of get back, on track, then I think Oklahoma is really going to struggle to find enough points to keep up here.
Next one on the schedule in order of tip-off, we have Iowa State going to Missouri. Iowa State, 2 losses, each by 2 points. Iowa State plays a lot of close games. The computer has this one as Missouri as about a 2.5-point underdog, or I say computers, on its home floor with a 42% chance of winning. We have talked about how just maddeningly, good grief.
You can say that. Difficult. I'm not going to say that.
Right. I'm not going to attempt that one again. How tough Missouri is. Why was that? Well, that was a lot simpler. How tough Missouri is to guard and how tough certain things are to pronounce, apparently. Anyway, Missouri is got scoring from a lot of places. Missouri is getting other options. We've talked about Muhammad Diarra becoming a factor late after not playing almost at all. We talked about Isaiah Mosley, who we thought might be their best player. Certainly in the discussion before the season, becoming more of a factor. I don't know that I trust Missouri enough to defend still. At times it's looked better. What are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, in all honesty, like I didn't really, and maybe I should have, right? But I didn't think too hard about this one. I just think I think Iowa State is. I think they are really,
Playing at an elite
really
level.
good. And again, I think Missouri's good. And I think here's the interesting part, right? We talked about the trio of Hodge, Mosley, and Brown. I mean, you know, that's going to be that trio moving forward. Is going to be very hard for anyone to defend. Iowa State's a good defensive team, and they will turn you over just like Missouri wants to turn. What's Iowa State's numbers now? I know I looked at it about a week and a half ago, and I want to see what the turnover number is now. Um, they're
They
forcing
are number one in the country at forcing turnovers, which Missouri was number one for a while.
they're forcing about 18.7 turnovers a game. Missouri's forcing 18.4. So, you've got two teams that you kind of understand defensively. If they're going to make their mark, they really need to turn the other team over. And we've talked about how well Missouri's done taking care of the ball this season, right? And so this is a big test here because can Iowa State do what they want to do defensively against a Missouri team that, like we said, feel like they've got sort of a surefire guy in Nick Honor who you trust handling the ball. Um, you know, Other guys can do it as well, but yeah, it's an interesting matchup. But like I said, for some reason I didn't really think twice with my pick here because I think I'm going to pick Iowa State because I just really like the way this team has played. Um, they're not without their flaws either, like some other teams, and um, but still, I think when you're looking at the way they can play, and I think Missouri, I don't know though, like this one kind of feels like a potential turning point game for Missouri because
Yeah.
you know we saw them do what they did against Illinois, we saw them do what they did against Kansas. Arkansas was a big win, but I tell you, just immediately, they got beat at home by Alabama, which, like we said, that's without Kobe Brown, so I think you kind of have to throw a little bit of that out. I'm very just knowing the trio of Demoy Hodge, Isaiah Mosley, and Kobe Brown, knowing what they're capable of. I mean, man, I don't know. Now I'm like, I feel like I want to make this much closer than maybe I expected. And it's not, everyone knows I'm high on Missouri, but I'm also very high on Iowa State. And I think this game probably does go down to the wire. Like, I think this is a really good game between two top tier potential teams, like two teams you could certainly see at their best making a run, to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament and such. Um, because they both have just big strengths, right? Like we said,
Yeah.
Iowa State defensively, you look at what they can do. Missouri now, they've been so good offensively, and now they've got, a trio that just can all go for 25 at any time. So man, I'd mark this down maybe as one of the better ones, but I still am not going to second guess my pick. I think I'm still going to pick Iowa State, but you know what I'm doing here, right? You know exactly what my game plan is.
You're cursing your client. Well,
I,
let's talk about your client, Dennis Gates. Maybe no coach in the country, or not many, have done a better coaching job this season than Dennis Gates. He's on the short list for sure. I don't know that any coach in the country, though, has done a better job over the last 2 seasons than TJ Otzelberger at Iowa State. Iowa State will try to grind you to a slow tempo, which you see how Missouri likes to get out and get good looks ahead of you. And I'm looking at just this in tempo and maybe being a year ahead in coaching a team and a system. And that to me kind of points me to Iowa State too. I don't think Iowa State runs away with this game, but I just look at the defensive end. That's just where I think they've got a huge advantage. That and maybe being able to control tempo, which is iffy, but they've done it with other teams.
yeah, well, again, I think this is one to circle because I think this could be a lot of fun. Especially if Missouri gets this thing going the way they got things going early on against a Illinois, a Kentucky. That I think is essential, right? Because that's where we've seen Missouri's a team of kind of momentum. And like if they get headed in one direction, good luck because it's kind of hard to stop them. But if they get off to a slow start, sometimes they've got the offense to make up for it, but I think, it's just a crucial game in terms of Iowa State being able to force the turnovers defensively as well as they play. And, coaching wise, I mean, they're two very good coaches. And this is one to circle. It's probably one of the more intriguing games on the board, even if I'm going to do the reverse mojo here and pick Iowa State.
All right. This is the not most intriguing game of the day, probably. This is one on the U. Texas Tech, which is the lone winless team in conference play in the Big 12, faces LSU, which beat Arkansas at home to open the SEC season and has not won since. LSU scored 40 points at Arkansas last time out. Someone's got to win. The computers have Texas Tech as a 2-point favorite with a 57% chance to win. I just don't trust LSU at all right now. KJ Williams is the only guy on that team right now that scares me. His production has gotten eaten into big time with Adam Miller not helping out. Trey Hannibal on occasional night gives him something, but LSU has been so bad defensively. And for Texas Tech, frankly, the Big 12 is just a grind. This is going to feel like, to me, the ankle weights got taken off for this one.
Well, boy, this is a game here. Yeah, I don't know what to expect here. I have no idea. I think take the under. We're not bettors, but that's my guess. I think this will be a grind.
Rock
probably.
fight.
Yeah, I know A&M. Texas Tech's had some injuries, so I think that's something to look at. I think Isaacs. We need to probably look that up. I think he had. Was it their game against ankle injury against West Virginia? Is that right? Yeah, that was the most recent game. So that's something to keep an eye on. Those kind of things in these games specifically. Again, where it feels like these two teams are both just trying to claw for a win. Those are things to kind of look at, I think, to see how that plays into it. Because you're talking about a guy, who can score. And this is a Texas Tech team that really has not consistently put together enough offense in some of these games, as we know. So,
and that's not a big one away from home.
Yeah, that's another
Texas
one,
Tech,
right?
and even on neutral floors, they are 1-2, and that win was a 102-52 crushing of Jackson State on a neutral court. So,
gosh, it's like this team has lost 8 in a row. LSU's lost 7 in a row. Something's got to give here. My thing is, if I
just don't trust LSU. I just don't. I'm sorry.
Here's the thing: if I pick against LSU here and they lose, am I ever going to pick LSU again until February the 18th? Remember, that's the magic date we've been talking about.
You were the high man on LSU between the two of us coming in.
Oh, look at this!
Clung
now,
to
all
that
of a sudden,
for a while.
Here we go. All right. Well, you know what? They were 12-1 at one point, where they're only lost to a top 5 Kansas State team. So I was okay at that point. Now I have hopped off the bandwagon since then. But the problem for LSU again is if they lose this game, it becomes an 8-game losing streak, and then you go to Missouri, home against Alabama, at Mississippi State, home against A&M, at Georgia, home against South Carolina. Like, could they really be on like a double-digit losing streak here? Is that really possible? Then for Texas Tech, how about this? How about this for Texas Tech? If they lose this game, they got to come home and play Iowa State. They're at Baylor, at Oklahoma State, home against Kansas State, home against Texas, at West Virginia. One of these teams may be headed for a double-digit losing streak here. And I don't think I ever would have thought that a month ago. Because remember, Texas Tech was 10-2. And so, wild. I say all that to say, good luck for anyone picking or betting on this game. Because I don't know what to tell you. This may be the first game I've ever picked where I don't pick a winner.
Are you saying they're both going to lose?
No, somebody's got to win. I'll take Texas Tech. Sorry,
Texas
LSU.
Tech. That's who I'd take too. Okay, next one up on the deuce at 3:00. TCU and Mississippi State, and the computers are favoring TCU on the road by about 1.5 and giving the Horned Frogs about a 56% chance to win. BPI does have State as about a 0.5-point favorite. State went to Alabama and darn near pulled off an upset.
Yeah.
But the thing that I've said over and over, I just don't trust teams that can't score in games like this. And TCU can score. TCU can also defend. I think the computers like this one more than I do. But let's also say that we talked about State at Tuscaloosa. If you just tuned in and watched that game and didn't know any better, those two teams looked evenly matched. The computers still like Mississippi State. They don't love Mississippi State, one of the better defensive teams in the country, but it's the scoring, and I just don't trust the Bulldogs to do that, even if that one is in Starkville.
This is the point now where you've got to start finding some upsets somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm looking down the rest of the schedule. I'm like, all right, I've got to pick an upset. I haven't picked an upset anywhere, I don't think, yet. I've gone Big 12 heavy. There is something about this Mississippi State team in this game. If this was not in Starkville, I would not probably think twice about this. But I see this as like a Mississippi State kind of game. And I wonder if this is where I'm going to go for my upset, because this is another one of those teams we said they just can't score. God, they've not hit more than 67 points. They have not. Hold on, this is like a better stat. They have not hit 70 points since December the 3rd.
Ooh,
that is incredible. Is that right? That is right. Yeah, they've not scored 70.
Do you know how many TCU scored in its last road game?
I know where you're going. TCU can score. I mean,
yeah,
they played a faster pace too. So, am I really going to do this? Here's the thing, right? I got to pick an upset somewhere, because then we're just boring. All right, I haven't picked any yet. I'm looking down the rest of the board. I only see one other upset I'm going to pick, and so I'm going to do it because who cares? This is for entertainment and fun. I'm going to pick Mississippi State as one of my upsets here. We can all come back when they score 38 points and, ridicule later. But I don't know why, Chris. This is just the one that's kind of I'm looking at them like, this may be it. And I just think it's probably because of how well they played at Alabama. I think that's it. And now you come back home. Can you carry that over? This is just a bad offensive team, though. And I don't know, man. This may be a bad pick. Who knows? So,
if you want to take Blake up on that, go to BROTHROW. We're betting $11 to win, $10 stinks, and you might be able to bet $11 to win 10.
I'll bet 30 cents on this game.
With Blake, BROTHROW lets you bet on all 50 states. It's not the house, so bettors have a fair chance at winning. It is the only sports betting platform that doesn't take a cut of every bet. No deposits, no minimum bets, no need to connect your bank account. Bettors pay each other directly. It's a hassle-free sign-up process. It gets you in the actions in seconds. Go to brothrow.com/SE14. Ask to join our community once you get there. Okay, next up in order of tip-off, also at 3 o'clock, this one on ESPN, Arkansas goes to Baylor. Computers have Baylor as about a 5-point favorite with a 70% chance of winning. Baylor again, the home team. Arkansas has looked better. I don't know that I buy the Razorbacks winning in this spot, though.
Yeah, this wasn't the one I was looking at as my upset. Baylor's just they're turning the corner, right? They started 0-3 in Big 12 play.
5 in a row.
They've won 5 in a row. Offensively, I think they're hitting their stride in some areas. And you got to remember that too. Like, we talk about like teams that think about the sort of the style in the Big 12 too. And there's some good defensive teams there. And it's hard to put up points, against some of these teams. And I just find it hard to pick against them. I mean, they have 2 home losses this year, right? For Baylor. Lost by 1 to TCU, 1 to Kansas State, or 2 to Kansas State in overtime.
And Kansas State was overtime, right?
Yeah, I just can't do it. Arkansas, I just feel like is, like we said, I think Arkansas is going to get back on track in SEC play. I think they're going to win their next 2. I think I'm going to go call that right now. Though the A&M one looks a little even tougher now, but I think there's at least a decent chance Arkansas can get back to 5-5 in the league. But having this is kind of the pit stop in there on the road, just for this Arkansas team, as we said, I think that we'll still have some issues, maybe scoring wise at times. and maybe removing the element of the 3-point shot, and you don't really know what the rotation could look like. It's a Baylor team that can get to the free throw line. So if Arkansas gets in foul trouble, what happens there?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more questions than I. So I'm gonna pick Baylor in this one.
Yeah, Arkansas, I don't think has done much on the road either. Is Arkansas winless on the road?
Yeah, that's what we talked about before. We said that
Yeah.
coming into that LSU game, that was December 28th. We're like, well, they didn't play it. They didn't play a true road game at all in non-conference play, and so that kind of started that streak of, well, can you really trust them away from home? And at this point, they haven't won a true road game. So,
Yeah.
So I just think that probably makes this I don't say an easy pick, but you can certainly make a stronger argument in Baylor's favor here, I think. So.
Okay, there's 2 games left in the SEC Big 12 Challenge where the computers have a wider range of discrepancy than I would have expected, and this is the first one of these. This is Tennessee hosting Texas. That game at 5 Central on ESPN. The computers, Jeff Sagarin has Tennessee's a 6.8 point favorite. BPI, the high man on the Vols for this one, has him 11.1. Averages out to Tennessee as a 9-point favorite with an 83% chance of winning. Texas is the highest ranked Big 12 team in Ken Pom, which I wouldn't have expected. The Vols have just been so consistent. You can't score against them. Georgia was about to turn in a 30-something point game till it got a bucket in the final minute in Knoxville on Wednesday night. And look, Texas and Georgia, totally different animals. But the point is the Vols have just stopped just about anybody and everybody defensively. I still remember that Kansas game where Tennessee held Kansas to 50 back on November 25th in a win. I'm just hard-pressed to go against the Vols in Knoxville the way they are defending.
Yeah, I mean, this should be, I think it's be a good game. You certainly look at how Texas plays, and Rodney Terry's done a good job there. And, offensively, that's a good group. So, I mean, I think, it's just you're having to play Tennessee. And Tennessee defensively, as we've said, if you're someone from the Big 12, haven't watched Tennessee play a lot this season, they're just defensively, they're just the kind of team that I can give everybody fits. And we talked about just the ridiculous numbers in terms of points allowed and all that this season. Yes, they lost the game to Kentucky. That was way more offensive based than it was defensive based, which could still happen with Tennessee. Again, I don't think they're. It's gonna happen again. Like they're gonna have some offensive stretches where it doesn't look pretty, but I just tend to think when you look at this team, we've already seen what they can do against a team like Kansas earlier in the season. I feel like Tennessee and Knoxville in the Rick Barnes Bowl here. Defensively, they are playing at a different level right now. But this will be a fantastic game, as you would expect. Maybe the marquee game of the series here. But yeah, this should be a lot of fun. But I just think Tennessee, with their ability to defend anyone that comes into that gym, even Kentucky, as we said, won that game. But it wasn't like Kentucky was just perfect offensively. It was just Tennessee was so bad, missed so many layups. Maybe that happens again here, but I would probably put the bet on Tennessee if I was doing that.
Okay. Also at 5 o'clock, this one on ESPN2, Florida visits Kansas State. Jerome Tang has got the Wildcats playing about as well as anybody in the country, perhaps in contention for a number 1 seed. This will be the rematch of Keontae Johnson, who was the preseason SEC Player of the Year 2 years ago. Of course, had that terrible health spell, didn't play again after that, has rediscovered his form at Kansas State. The Wildcats about 5-point favorites with a 70% chance to win according to the computers. That seems low to me. The computers have loved Florida, but the Gators really have not put it together against great teams yet. Hard to see Kansas State losing this one in Manhattan.
Yeah, it's one of those games where it's like you kind of almost wish it was in Gainesville, because like you would love to be able to see kind of the reaction. Although you would also not want, fans, I guess, rooting against him at the same time. So it's like kind of but I mean, that would just be, but it's going to be the same way. Like it's just, the emotional aspect of it, him playing against his former team, and again, everything that kind of happened there. Just, I mean, like I said, it's just good to see him playing again, period. And, but not only is he doing it, he's doing it at just an incredible level. And that's why Kansas State's the pick here for me. We've talked about Florida playing a lot better right now. That they really are. I mean, this is a Florida team that is doing a lot of things really well. They're starting to figure out some things offensively, I think, but they're more built around their defense. And I just still think Kansas State, though, how well Keontae Johnson's playing, that group that they have, that's a good group. I mean, it really is. Like you just talk about a group here that, like we said, Jerome Tang, what a hire. But this is a team, just coming off a hard fought loss at Iowa State, but they have been so good at home this season, and I just think they have to be the pick in this one.
Okay, maybe the headliner: Kansas visits Kentucky. Kentucky went to Lawrence and just obliterated the Wildcats a season ago. The Wildcats, the Jayhawks. My goodness, I just insulted a lot of people there. But anyway, computers are all over the place on this one.
It's been a tough recording here, folks. Let me just tell you.
It's been a tough
If you wonder why we're sprinting through the back half here, it's because we've been trying to do this for a long time, and technical issues have prevented that. So we apologize if we're sprinting through some of the back half of the games here. But, yeah, just want to give you that for reference.
The computers, Bart Torvik has Kansas as a 1.6-point favorite in this one. BPI has Kentucky as a 4.2-point favorite. So all over the place here. And mostly that's based on what the computers think of Kentucky and how the weights are done. But anyway, enough rambling. Kentucky on the whole, about a 1-point favorite with a 54% chance of winning. Kentucky's won, 4 in a row, starting with that upset win in Knoxville. Played in Nashville against Vandy, get a 16-point road win last time out. Cats are starting to play better, and Kansas has lost 3 in a row. Not a lot of times you can say that about the Jayhawks, but that's the state of Kansas basketball coming into this one in Lexington.
Yeah, I know some fan base take some issue with you calling this the headliner. I don't think this is the headliner. I think Tennessee Texas is the headliner. You got 2 top 10 teams. I mean, that's the headliner in my book. But traditionally, historically, yes, this is the headliner, Kentucky and Kansas. But Kentucky's still unranked. Kansas not playing their best basketball. So I look at this one, and it's kind of interesting to think about, right? Let's say Kansas loses this game. Well, how do they – what's next? Like, if Kansas becomes a 4-game losing streak team as, the defending national champion, then what's after that? Kansas State at home, at Iowa State, home against Texas. Like, my goodness, we're talking about losing streaks. Man, could that really happen? This is one of those games where you really have to feel like you have a finger on where Kentucky's at. And I know you know where I'm at on that. I think they've turned the corner. I think you can see it in how they play. Yes, they've beaten a team like Georgia, beaten a team like Vanderbilt. People say, well, that's just, games you should win. Okay, that's fine. But they won at Tennessee. They beat a really good A&M team. They are playing with much more confidence right now. Offensively, Casey Wallace has the ball in his hands, and they are figuring some things out. Antonio Reeves making shots. CJ Frederick at least giving them that threat out there from the three-point line. Oscar Tshiebwe is one of the best players in the country, as we know. And, yeah, I would have never thought maybe I'd sit here kind of in this spot. Remember what happened last year in Lawrence? Let's remember that too, though.
It was an obliteration.
Kentucky just went in there and took care of business. So Kansas will be coming back for some revenge here. And again, this is a Kansas team that has something to prove because they've lost 3 straight games. And so that I think it's like, can you really pick Kansas to lose a 4th straight game here? Because I still think this is a good team, right? And yet I am going to pick Kentucky. I've been bitten by this before because I feel like, early in the season, we picked Kentucky in all the big games. You remember, like every big game, we're looking up, we're like, all right, they're going to beat Michigan State. They're going to beat the Zags. Well, that didn't work out too well.
Every time we go out on a limb for you, Kentucky, you bite us. So is this the day this is going to stop? Because
we didn't pick them at Tennessee, so I can tell you that with
you didn't pick them to win the national title last year.
Well, no, I didn't. But I did pick them to win the SEC this year after you persuaded me to change my vote from Tennessee. So I blame you for that. But the Cats are playing better.
Barely.
Matchup wise, like I said, I think to me, this is more about what we've seen from Kentucky. if they just keep going the way they've been going, I think they're going to be in good shape because I think Kansas, good defensive team. And we know still Kansas, their best, can get rolling offensively. Let's not act like they can't, because they're good enough to do that. But I don't know. I feel like Kentucky is turning the corner, and to me, this is that game where if you really want to say that it has been turned completely, I think winning this game, my goodness, then you're talking about setting this Kentucky team off into another sort of stratosphere here based on where they were 2 weeks ago against South Carolina.
Okay, we got two SEC on SEC games to do quickly, but first, the last game of the Big 12 SEC Challenge, Ole Miss visiting Stillwater to face Oklahoma State. Computers have OSU as about a 9-point favorite with an 82% chance of winning. Ole Miss has not looked good, even with Matt Morrell. I don't know what his status is for this one. He's Ole Miss's best player, but it doesn't really matter to me. I don't trust Ole Miss to win in Stillwater with him or without him.
Yeah, I know they said they hope to have him back, but we have no idea as we're recording this on Thursday. Yeah, Ole Miss is just a team that talk about struggles offensively. They're another one. I mean, road games this year, right? They've beaten South Carolina, but that's not saying a whole lot. In all their other road games, they have struggled to put up points. 57 points at Memphis, 62 points at Alabama, 54 points at Mississippi State, 57 points at Arkansas. So they're a team that already struggles overall on that side of the floor, but specifically on the road, they've not played well. If Matthew Morrell doesn't play, that adds another issue in that equation. And again, Oklahoma State is 11-9, 3-5 in the league, but they are a great defensive team. And yes, they have their own issues on the offensive end of the floor, which you can see when you watch some of these games. But they also are good enough defensively, I think, to give them a chance, to beat some of the top teams, which they've done, right? They beat Iowa State 61-59. They beat West Virginia 67-60. Those are the kind of games they have to play. And in a sense, maybe that plays in Ole Miss's advantage, where you just don't expect this to be a high scoring game, which is not what they need. But yeah, I think this is Oklahoma State, and probably not much debate on that, just given where both teams are at right now.
Okay, the two SEC on SEC games. South Carolina travels to Georgia as about a 13-point underdog with a 10% chance to win in Athens. Vanderbilt goes to red-hot Texas A&M without Liam Robbins. Again, it appears the Aggies about 10-point favorites according to the computers, with an 83% chance to win according to the computers. I do not see an upset in either of these. Carolina has just, how many times has this team been beaten by 20 points or more, including the last one out? A&M is red hot. Vanderbilt did not play well in a loss to Kentucky, although the Commodores have shown up in spots, did win at Georgia a week ago, so don't count them out. But I just think A&M's a much better team, and I don't see upsets in either of these.
No, give me Georgia, because I think, against South Carolina, as we said, just not playing well right now. And I mean, I guess this is one where Georgia has not been overwhelming offensively, to where maybe South Carolina, if they hit some shots like they did against Kentucky, who knows? But yeah, you're not going to pick against Georgia in this spot, I don't think. And then A&M at Vandy, I mean,
Reverse.
I expect
it's in College Station.
No, that's not. Sorry, I didn't say that.
Oh,
I was
sorry.
saying A&M and Vandy. But like, I fully expect this to be close. I know it doesn't make sense, and I know they just lost
Vandy
by
doesn't make
16
sense
at home, but it just doesn't make sense. So it's probably going to find a way to be close somehow, some way. But yeah, I mean, like we said, A&M is legit now, and I hope people are starting to realize that, just with how they play. Yes, we can all point to the non-conference, but it's not December anymore. It's almost February. This team is really starting to play some really good basketball. You can point at their schedule. You can do all this other stuff. That's fine. But they just wanted Auburn, a place no one had won out for the past 28 games. They are playing very well right now. And so, Buzz will have his guys ready. And yeah, I'm going to pick the Aggies in that one.
Okay, we are getting into SEC baseball. We've started our coverage with that. We are doing early previews for the 2023 football season for every SEC team. We are doing basketball predictions for every SEC game. We're doing wrap-ups for all the games. We are your place if you like the big three sports in the SEC. So if you like us, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. Both those things help us out. Blake, or are we done here? You look like you got something on the
I've got
mind.
something to say. Reminder, we are doing another SEC Big 12 Challenge video that will be out as well, kind of looking at some of the top storylines, looking a bit more at the Big 12 teams. So we don't have a lot of SEC subscribers, of course. So we'll have another video with someone who knows the Big 12 very well. And so we're going to put that together. We'll have that out on Friday. And yes, so be sure to hit that subscribe button, and a lot of other fun stuff on the way. Chris, I would like to officially revert my Mississippi State TCU pick. No, I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with it for now. I've got to have an upset somewhere, maybe outside of the Kentucky one. Will Kentucky be the favorite? I have no idea. We'll see when the numbers come out. But got to have an upset somewhere. And I don't know that I love the Mississippi State one, but I don't love any other ones either. So maybe I should have went Missouri. I don't know. I have no idea what to do here. I'll change it on our Friday video. I'll pick TCU in that one.
All right.
There you go.
Lots of fun here. It'll be fun to watch these games. Can't wait for it. We'll be here to wrap them up. Again, best way to catch that is hit the subscribe button. Thank you sincerely for watching. He's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. We'll see you again soon at Southeastern 14.